my God, Poppy. It feels like it's been forever. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has been forever, and now we're back, and we have a special guest.
Yes, we do. We have a very special gentleman. By day, he's a contractor?
General contractor.
General contractor. Step up to the plate, please.
All right, I'm here.
State your name.
Matthew Curtis.
State your height.
No,
Your social.
General contractor by day, but he has a superhero costume that he wears at night. And at least in my strange little fantasies that I have in my mind, nothing weird there, folks. Don't get all crazy. But by night, he's my shroom guru.
Oh.
Wow. Cool.
He has a SM, not like Superman, but shroom man. You know, I'm just
SG,
messing
yeah.
around. Now, Matthew, why don't you introduce yourself? Forget all my silly bantering.
Well, as you say, I got a day job, a day life, day mentality, and then I have my after hours mentality, which I have a handle online as Cosmic. I'm known as Cosmic. I've been known for like 25 years as Cosmic, and that's for various reasons. My spiritual pursuits, and other extracurricular activities, which you've grown to know.
Yes,
more of.
and grown.
So this Cosmic, is it like a Facebook page or Instagram?
Well, it started off as my email, Cosmic Work, but it's more.
Yeah, let's get you in a little better. There we go. All right, there you go, Bobby. Okay.
It's morphed into just my online handle and all Discord channels I'm in, or other business ventures. You know, like some of the shirts I'm making and different things. So.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to stand up and show your shirt real quick? Just real quick.
All right.
All right.
It's
So it
just
looks like the green screen's grabbing that a little bit, but
Yeah.
this is
switch it to that camera.
It just says proper medicine for the people.
nice. The mushroom,
Oh,
awesome.
there it is.
And that was done using
Midjourney.
Midjourney.
Actually,
Okay,
yeah.
I think
that was when I'm playing around with it. That's
everybody-
such a fascinating art form, you know,
Right.
for us.
What is Midjourney?
You don't know Midjourney? Oh, wow. That's the AI. That's all the.
Oh, so it's
well,
just
there's
AI
many
art?
of them now.
Okay.
But it's one of the more popular ones because of its power. And Midjourney's been fascinating. It's been a journey on Midjourney.
Poppy. You don't
That's
know about
pretty cool.
Midjourney?
No, I mean there's so many
I'm just
AI
teasing you.
websites nowadays, and
Yeah.
I haven't even tried it myself, but I see the art that people post online, and it's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
insane.
I got into it just because I've always felt like an artist at heart, and finding the right media and the time
Yeah.
is such a hard thing.
And
then
now
that
you have
popped
somebody
up,
to
I'm
do
like,
it for you.
"Hey."
Yeah, a machine.
There
Get
you
to
go.
work.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so tell us, a little bit more about what you do with your SM cloak on.
My SM cloak.
Yeah, your superhero cloak.
oh.
I'm joking. Never mind. Okay.
Ignore him.
At night, when you are busy working on all these things that you're working on, what would you say your overall vibe is? What are you doing? What are you trying to get out there? What are you creating, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, that would harken way back to my early days, my teenage years. You want me to go back that far?
Yes, please.
And talk about
Yeah,
the
talk
reasons
about like
for everything.
yeah, like when you first tried it, what interested you? You know, right? Like, was it a dare? Was it always an interest? You know somebody that did it?
Wait. What's the it we're talking about?
Whatever he's talking about.
Okay,
His
let's
journey,
see.
the
Let's see
beginning
what
of
he's
his
talking about
journey.
in his journey. Okay,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, I wasn't going to start with substances to begin with, but
Okay.
more the essence, right?
Yeah.
Of being. So, what would you guys say is the most important and maybe underrated question of our lives?
Underrated.
Or what would you personally say is your most important question?
I mean, I've
in
always
life?
questioned, what's the purpose of being so conscious, right? Like I've always questioned what's the meaning of life? What is it to get up every day and have to work and then we just die? It's like what's the purpose of everything if we know there's an end to it? If like why does anything even matter?
Why do we exist?
Exactly. And I always wondered, like, what's there's a lot of species on on Earth that aren't as conscious as us, and they just focus on one thing, which is survival. But we're just so much more than that. We tap into just everything, and we just think beyond. And I feel like that's just too dangerous for me, because sometimes I can catch myself going on and wondering what everything is about and what everything is for, and it's that's just my my question, right?
Yeah.
These are the things that go through my head.
So basically, it's why do we exist in
Yeah.
essence, all right? Why are we here? Would you mirror that, or do you have a different
Yeah,
perspective?
I mean, as a intellectual, philosophical, self-aware human being, I would certainly subscribe to those typical three questions. How did I get here? Where am I going? How long have I got? Those
Am I
types of
girthy
things.
enough?
What was that?
Am I girthy enough?
Jorge wants to know, is he girthy enough?
Okay,
Okay.
that's a word I haven't used in a while. Girthy.
Yeah. No. I'd say those typical questions, and then and later on in my years, that question had far more complexity to it and more layers in the strata of what did that really mean, almost like the depths of the chakras and the depths of frequencies and a three-dimensional expanding universe. Suddenly it's like, okay, well, I'm here for a reason, and now I got to find that purpose. And it's funny because talking to you and having some of these conversations with you, you pulled a lot of things into alignment for me that I'm sure we'll get into at some point.
Yeah. For me, it was the same. That was a big question, and that hit me when I was 14 years old. And
It's about when it hit me too.
did it? Okay.
Yep.
And mostly, actually, it was due to some bowling at school, which
Bullying, you said?
bowling at
Okay.
school triggered me into this really deep soul search. And because there was actually a moment when I contemplated suicide back in the day.
Ooh.
And, it didn't go very far because I anchored pretty quickly to something stronger than that. But,
Good.
I think a lot of people face that in life, some of these bowling scenarios, especially with social media these days, it can get intense, you know.
It's definitely different.
And when kids haven't already gone down that avenue of questioning to really anchor themselves in anything,
Sure.
it can be pretty rough,
Yeah,
in this
it's
day
hard
and
to get
age.
to that point where you go like this and you're okay with that,
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that started off early. And funny enough, my uncle who lives on Maui, who I just saw last week, he sent me a book about the same time I was going through this. Many of you may have read this book, maybe not. It was called Way of the Peaceful Warrior
One of my favorites.
by Dan Millman.
Love that book.
And that book just seemed to open doors for me. And he had a teacher in that book, right? Socrates, he was known as. And you never read that, right?
No, I've never read it, but
It's a fabulous book. In fact, a lot of it took place, or the second book took place in Hawaii. But anyway, whether or not it was an authentic experience for Dan Millman or not, whether it was just completely a work of fiction, I don't know. But whatever happened,
Is it okay if I pull that up real quick just so they
Oh,
can
yeah.
see what that looks like? Okay,
Zoom
let me do the web thing here.
yeah, that was a great book. He was a gymnast. The character in there was a gymnast up in Berkeley here in California. But anyway, I won't go into the whole book. Read it. It's a great book. But he had a teacher, this unusual man that he came across who was working at a gas station late one night. He was troubled by something. I don't remember what it was, right? And he met this guy he found a little bit unusual. And anyway, not to go too deep into the book, that triggered something in me. It triggered something in me that I wanted to find my own teacher, right? And that was always in the back of my mind. And so for 7 years, that percolated and percolated. And besides that, I was studying different avenues. My aunt, actually my uncle's partner, they never married, they don't believe in marriage. She was feeding me other stuff because I lived over in Maui for a while, and she was feeding me stuff from her end of, because everybody has their own perspectives on life, right?
Sure.
And she was feeding me stuff, he was feeding me stuff, and I was feeding myself some stuff. And on Maui, man, you come across all kinds of characters. Like,
Oh, sure.
the spiritual cooking pot of the islands was way more intense than anything here on the mainland. And you had people from all walks of life there, and they're probably 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Like things I was talking about and discussing when I was 20 years old, which is almost 30 years ago, is just coming into the consciousness here of people on the mainland.
Yeah, I agree with that, and there are little pockets here and there. There's little pockets around the U.S. and like in California, like Venice or Santa Barbara or San Francisco or a little Oceanside, or you know what I mean, like little pockets of that spiritual essence that's decades ahead of contemporary cultural thought in the United States or wherever it is. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
So I think you were tapping into that. I'm sorry,
There's
continue.
definitely pockets,
Yeah.
There seems to be an attraction to certain places. Obviously, there's PowerPoints or vortexes, and people go
Sure.
do this and that and there, those places. But anyway, where was I going with all this?
You were talking about what you got triggered, and then you
Yeah.
went to Maui.
So anyway, yeah, I was on that journey. I had in the back of my mind that I would really want to meet my own teacher. Someone could show me the truth, because I understood what Jesus taught back in the day. I'm not an orthodox religious person by any means, but I always felt a really strong connection with what Jesus was teaching. His Sermon on the Mount in particular always registered with me very deeply. And but what I used to go to Alaska in the summertime. My friend went to college. I only went to community college for like 6 months, and I had to leave. It wasn't where I was at. Like, just to touch on that briefly, because I had that strong question of why we exist was so paramount in my mind at 18 and 19 years old. It was so strong that I literally, I cannot spend another day in class until I get the basic questions answered about life, That's just how I was. That's just how my mind worked. Like, I needed to know why I was living and breathing more than I needed to listen to another teacher drone on about some shit I may never use in my life.
Right.
So that's just how my mind was. And so I left, and my friend found a flyer on he was going to University of Laverne. He saw a flyer on his bulletin board about working in Alaska. I'm like, oh, that sounds like an adventure, right? So I'm like, I'm on board. I'll drive, So actually 4 of us took off in my car and went up to Alaska. And we didn't know, but the salmon season, kind of comes down the coast all the way from like the Anchorage area and kind of works its way down. And we were in the bottom. We were up in an island called Ketchikan. Well, the island's called Revillagigedo, but the town's called Ketchikan. It's like right off the coast of British Columbia, just north of Vancouver. So it's like the last spot the salmon hit. So we got there way too early, and we were sitting for like a month, just like we only had like
Starving.
Yeah, pretty much ramen life,
Where them damn salmon at?
Yeah, ramen life, living in the trees in the tent.
Yep.
And our money was going fast, and like we were just trying to survive. But they were going to hire us the moment the salmon showed up. But anyway, that was our first adventure. And my friend, another friend that went up with us, we called him Nate Dogg. He brought a book with him, and this is actually on the second journey. That was the first journey, but he actually brought the book on the second journey because we went up at 4 summers to do this. And then I would spend my winters, I'd do that for 3 months and then go to Utah and just snowboard all winter.
Nice.
And that was my life for a while. And he brought a book with him, though, called The Mayan Factor, written by an archaeologist from Mexico named, I think it was Moses Morales, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, this particular story that he was painting, because he was the archaeologist that used the magnetic resonance machines and dragged them all over there looking for underground ruins and missing chambers and this and that, and
buried civilization.
yeah And if you've ever been down there, like I went down to Palenque, and it was, the jungle just takes over everything down there. But anyway, he said something in this book that triggered me like nothing else. And he had a theory that the classical group of Mayans, because there's different periods of Mayans, but there's this classical group, it's termed the classical group, where they just seem to have vanished. There didn't seem to migrate somewhere. There didn't seem to be a warring that made them all, pass away or die or get sold into slavery. And they just kind of vanished. And it was at the peak of their civilization. And so, judging by a bunch of different factors, which I don't remember, but he came up with this theory that he thought maybe they had an entire ascension as a community. Ever heard that word?
Yeah. Ascension? Yeah. No, you and I have talked about it, and I've read about it, and
Now, for the people that don't know, explain it a little bit.
Maybe you want to explain.
Oh no, I mean I'm one of those people.
Let me give it a crack.
Right, give it a crack.
Since George doesn't know,
an official ascension is when you have, I guess, what you would say spiritually graduated from your corporal form, and you've ascended to the next celestial plane.
So what happens to your meat sack of a body?
Wait, hold on. Did I get that? Did I do it justice?
I think that's a good start.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
And I'm sure that
Oh,
Matt would just like rock our socks off explaining exactly what that looks like and the depth of it, but
well, the ascension to me is what we'll call that graduation from the schoolroom. That's how I like to term it, is graduating from this schoolroom.
okay.
And it's something that Jesus did and tried to show all of us how to do, practically speaking. Like the things he taught through the Sermon on the Mount were literally, to me, like mathematical formula to be applied. And there's a lot of different spiritual teachers that I think would agree with that. But anyway, going back to the ascension, it's a graduation. And for a whole society to do that is possible, that they've reached a very high level of culture, of art, of government, of understanding of life. Because if we look at a lot of these civilizations, let's look at the pyramids that are, I'm not going to call them the Egyptian pyramids, because let's just say the pyramids found in Egypt, all right?
Right.
The mathematics involved and the understanding of the cosmos that are all wrapped up into this physical building of this thing is so mind-blowing. I don't know if either of you have ever looked into the mathematics.
Of course.
If I could, and especially as a devil's advocate position on the whole pyramid thing. Now, I know that there's a lot of information out there about how the pyramids were aligned with Orion's belt or some of the stars in Orion, how it may have appeared 15,000 years ago, which would validate the age it was made, and like that whole conversation. But do you... I think there's... I don't know if it's people that are trying to disprove what some people have come up with, but it's what have you learned about all that?
Well, I think the best place to steer anybody, besides what I'm going to say, is Randall Carlson.
And Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two guys.
Randall Carlson has there's this whole YouTube thing called After School.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen that?
I watch that
oh
all the time.
God.
So going
good.
to that,
Yeah.
oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
So Randall Carlson goes in deep, right?
Yeah.
And they calculated that the pyramids, when you add them up and divide them by pi and do all this mathematical stuff, right, it adds up to the diameter of the Earth. You know, and it just, I mean, there's just so much information there I can't even explain, right? But it's insane, you know, how much thought and you know, mathematics went into building these pyramids. And he argues that these pyramids weren't even built, you know, 8,000, 10,000 years ago, that they've been there for 30, maybe even 50,000 years ago. And
Or longer.
Or longer.
Or longer.
And we really don't know.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I still...
It's impossible to date stuff.
Yeah. And I had a huge debate with a guy in my spearfishing club about how the pyramids were made. He still holds to the, you know, rolling on logs and, you know, tens of thousands of slaves and the whole thing. And I'm just like...
That's
Dude,
yesterday's propaganda.
Yeah, I think you need to do a little deeper homework, buddy.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Um,
so going back to your spiritual quest, because I want to cover this. I want to cover the Jesus thing. I want to cover so many things with you, and I think we already talked about this earlier, that we're going to break this up into a few, because Matt has just such a plethora of study and learning and experiences, and we want to application. I think
the
we're
critical thing is applying
what you've learned. Yes, and we're going to have to bring you in again. I can just tell right now, because we're already at whatever it is, 20 minutes, and we haven't even scratched the surface here.
This is like an outline.
Yes, this is an outline of what's coming, folks. So you're gonna want to watch all these little breakup sessions that we're gonna do with Matt, and we'll get to all those subjects. But on the quest for your spirituality and finding a teacher and the ascension.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so, yeah, the mathematics thing is paramount to understand, because, and that's one thing I've grown to understand deeply in my life, through direct application and direct guidance, through my personal teachers I've had, and through various avenues. But mathematics and applying those principles that are taught is literally the core of our existence in this classroom. And if we're not doing those things, if we're not striving to understand more of why we are here, why we have consciousness, why we have this physical vehicle that our consciousness is temporarily housed in, if we're not trying to understand that, we are literally doing nothing with our embodiment. It's like
think about that.
time.
So think about that for a second, if you don't mind. Can I jump in for just a second?
Yeah.
Okay, on that point, the reason why I like what you said right there is because I've had a conversation with some friends about spirituality. Okay, I have some friends who are devout Christians, whatever faith they're in. Okay, it seems to be, at least the people that I've met in my circles. I have a moral Christian core, so I tend to attract those types of people, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the Christians that I've spoke to, they cannot get out of their understanding of the world using the Bible as a template. And so I have all these conversations with them. I'm like, look, you guys, the Bible is a beautiful moral hand guide. And it's the Word of God as interpreted by many authors who have had experiences with God and then wrote these stories, and they all got collected together, and hence the Bible. But the Bible wasn't there to explain quantum physics. It wasn't there to explain molecular biology. It wasn't there to explain the depth of spectral analysis of the deeper heavens and the stars. That's not what it was there for. It's there to give you like a moral handbook, right? Would you agree with that? It's like a moral handbook to guide you to be a good human being on this earth and learn to live like Jesus lived. I think personally that's the crux of that whole thing, is to try to live like Jesus. But that doesn't mean that everything else that you're learning and experiencing in life should not be considered, and that all these things are falsehoods and the devil trying to trick you. What's your thought on that, since you hit that point about not using other studies to enhance your understanding of your corporal existence?
Yeah, that's a big one. The Bible, I usually try to avoid discussing it at all.
Well, we don't have to if you don't want to. We don't have to go. Because I'm gonna get you to do the Bible, buddy. You don't know it, but it's happening, bro. I'm making it happen, but we don't have to do it right now.
I'm not very well read on the Bible, just so you know. I have perused it.
Well, okay. So then just go to the point of you owing it to your statement about owing it to yourself to push to understand your existence in this corporal form.
Yeah. Most of my experience has been very direct.
Okay.
I was very sensitive growing up. That's why I struggled in school, is I was extremely sensitive to energies, to people's thoughts, like their behavior. And that was my teacher more than, I think a lot of people are that way, and they don't realize it, right? And they maybe suppress it even. But I was so introverted as a youth that and sensitive to people's thought patterns and just how they're interacting. Like I literally was just paying attention to how that person was talking to that person, and not so much the words they were using, but like
I still do
just
that
the
to this
energy
day.
interaction, right? Are you that way too?
Yeah. Yeah, I used to always say, "Oh, I'm on some kind of spectrum because
Hypersensitive
I'm
to
hypersensitive
stuff.
and I overobserve and overcalculate, and my mind is always racing, and I'm more about like body language over than words,
The
right? And I'm
substance,
just I'm always just observing people, and sometimes I just get caught looking at somebody, or just somebody interacting, or I can just get caught somebody walking on the street, and I'm just thinking like, whatever, right? I mean, it's insane.
Yeah. You're attuned to a different thing,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people struggle with that when they're that way, right?
Yeah.
It's horribly overwhelming and sometimes frightening.
Yeah. I don't know why we're going down this tangent, but there's a purpose to it. And that's, I think a lot of people turn to different chemicals to suppress that. Because I think that's a big part of alcoholism, actually, is the suppressing of those natural natural attributes that they don't know how to handle, right? And that's a whole nother topic right there. I could talk for hours on
We'll get there, buddy. We'll
energy,
get there. We'll get them.
Yeah, so energy and how to utilize that for our personal education upliftment is a big factor. The Bible goes into that a little bit. A lot of different spiritual teachers. Yogananda, that's another individual who I thought was really applying what he taught, right? You guys familiar with Yogananda?
No.
Never heard of Yogananda? He was he
I'll
came
have to
from
think back.
20s and 30s. He was Indian. He had his own teacher, but he came to America. He felt called to come to America, and he set up the Yogananda Meditation Center in Encinitas, San Diego. It's
This
right on
person right here?
Yeah. This guy.
Oh, you're talking about the at Swami's?
Yeah.
At the Swami's?
Swami's.
Yeah.
That big place is his. Yeah. He had a huge impact on people back in the day. You should read about how he passed away consciously too. It's a very
was that
interesting story.
like a self-realization, almost like
Self-realization
Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh teachings kind of stuff?
Honestly, I don't know how those two equate. Bhagwan Sri Raj. Well, I won't go into that, gentleman, but some of his paths up in Oregon.
I've read a lot of his stuff.
I don't know how much is accurate. I don't want to say anything pro or con about him, but yeah, there may have been similarities, but Yogananda, whatever happened to Bhagwan Sri Rajni, how much of it is true, whatever. Yogananda certainly never took advantage of anybody.
Sure, yeah.
Definitely wasn't trying to get people's wealth, whether or not that took place or not with Bhagwan. I don't know.
I know there was the Rolls Royces and the all the accumulations.
Yeah. But if you read about his passing, how it was done consciously in meditation, and how his body did not deteriorate for a very long time.
Okay.
That should be a representative. That is a clear demonstration of an individual who actually knew what he was talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a word I'm going to talk about more, is demonstration. Demonstration of the truth of life is so paramount, because to me, the only people who should be teachers or call themselves a teacher, most of them don't even want to be called a teacher, honestly. When they get to that level, they're way too humble to do that. But a person should be capable of demonstration. If they're in my book, that's what I call a true teacher. Can you demonstrate the truth of what you're teaching? And I wouldn't necessarily, you should walk up to a person and challenge them on that, right?
Right.
Like, I didn't do that with my teacher. I didn't go, can you demonstrate? That's something I've learned over time after actually I left his presence, that demonstration of the truth is a necessary quality for anybody who's claiming to be a teacher. So, and the rest of us are just students. Just students on the path.
That's a big concept of talk about peeling back the the layers and pulling off the wool and getting to the core of what is a teacher.
Yeah. And that's something, because there's too many false teachers these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're a dime a dozen. There's 100 of them on YouTube any given moment doing a live stream, but the authentic ones are out there. But the key to finding an authentic teacher is personal resonance, frequency. And life will only draw a true teacher into your presence when your frequency is capable of benefiting from that interaction.
So how many teachers can you have in your lifetime?
I don't know.
Like, is it like, can
Plenty.
you, I mean, yeah, is
There's
there
no
like a
limit.
time limit? No, it's just,
It's just whatever your live stream requires or can handle. Like for me, from finally attracting my teacher, it took me years. It took me almost 20 years to process my 6 weeks of interaction with him. That's all I have is 6 weeks. And this guy blew my mind.
How did you find this guy? Where was he?
Palenque, Mexico.
Oh, you told me about him.
I did.
Oh my God. That
did.
story. Oh, you have to tell some of these stories. Are you willing to tell some of these stories?
Yeah, I know. Is the first podcast at the right time to go deep into that guy?
Well, maybe not. You know what? Okay, so, but I hope you're taking some mental notes here of some of these topics that you absolutely need to hit for next segments.
Yeah.
So let's maybe try to finish this one out. You have gone on a journey of self-discovery, wanting to be taught, wanting to understand the meaning of life. Why are you here? The deeper questions that a lot of very philosophical and self-aware people ask, right?
Yeah.
You've discovered math and arithmetic as a very important component of it, right? Frequency. Open your.
Do 2 + 2 = 4?
Yeah. Well, I'll bet you 10 times out of 10 that's going to work that way. And now here you are, and are you becoming a teacher yourself? Would you say?
Oh gosh, I wouldn't even attempt to answer that question. I'm definitely a student.
Because I've certainly learned some things from you. That's for darn sure, and more than you may realize, my friend.
I'm most definitely an earnest student of whatever path I'm on.
Okay.
That's all I can say.
Okay.
But there's something you said I wanted to touch on there for a moment.
Sure.
I'm spacing it,
No,
unfortunately. That's
okay.
one of my characteristics, unfortunately, is I will lose my train of thought.
Hey, you know what?
Jesus.
It actually happens to all of us.
So,
Unless it's written down, to circle back, and that's probably not a bad idea because you have so much information to share, my friend, and maybe we'll write some stuff down. So
these topics are so broad, right?
Yeah, they're broad, and they can go on journeys. They can go on
them.
tangents. They of course they can, and we're just barely even like looking at a snowflake on the tip of the iceberg with all of this stuff. So,
I mean, literally, this could be talking about these things. You could just do the rest of your life. Quite honestly.
Oh, absolutely.
In my book, personal insights. I'm sure you guys have lots of personal insights
Of
to
course.
share, So everybody does. It's just, I think the problem is life has a tendency to distract us from pursuing these things earnestly. And with the advent of social media and all the different societal pressures, and it's just everything is just one giant distraction in this world right now. The politics and all the bullshit going on with that side
Bombardment.
of things. The
Yep.
what?
Bombardment.
Yes, it bombards our life. And then just trying to make a living, trying to raise a proper family, trying to raise good kids that are not going to grow up to be, absolute nightmares or suicidal or depressed or
Bullies.
or bullies. And just to be well-rounded individuals. Like I'm trying to teach my daughter just how to think from a different perspective than what society will teach her to think from, to be much more introspective, to really take 10 seconds before you respond to somebody's question, you know? Just taking a breath.
Controlling from or migrating away from impulsivities.
Yes.
And
yes, it's so important. Literally, that one thing, just taking a moment to think about your response, can allow so much better and wholesome interaction. Like, that's a staggering thing. It's so simple, but does society do it? No, they start like, we're actually, it seems like society wants a quick fix on everything. All of our interactions need to be quick. Like, if you're not responding to somebody in half a second, you are ignorant of the topic, or you are maybe just incapable of, I don't know why.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's
people will
just
see
like,
it as an
like,
insult and
people will
just-
think you're literally don't know what you're talking about if you cannot respond to their thing within
yeah,
one
and
second,
that's
you know?
and that's where you have to interject with a little, give me a moment to respond.
Yeah.
I have to meditate on this one.
Right.
Well, maybe don't say meditate; they'll think you're a freak.
Yeah.
Say, I got to think about.
Yeah.
Give me a minute to ponder that.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
Because you need to touch base with your heart and your higher self if you really want to give a person a proper response. Otherwise, you're just literally parroting something that society is just blabbering about. That's all it's going to come off. And it's not going to be a quality, substantial interaction with somebody. So,
Well, hey, listen. let's shelve it there because I think we've touched on a little bit of
everything.
hey, this guy is super freaking interesting, and we're gonna break down some subjects and break it into some other breakaway little segments here. So
Stick around because we got 6 hours to go.
yeah, that's right. Hey, thanks. We're gonna hit some more. Okay.
yeah.
All right. We'll do that shortly.